Welcome to the Black Entrepreneur Experience podcast, inside the business, buzz, and brilliance of Black entrepreneurs. Here is your host, Dr. Frances Richards.
What happens in Vegas goes all over the world on Black Entrepreneur Experience, episode number 221. Thank you for joining us as we elevate the Black Entrepreneur Experience by interviewing CEOs, thought leaders, innovative thinkers, and Black entrepreneurs across the globe. I'm your host, Dr. Frances Richards. Japanese-American singer, songstress, taking her music from Chicago subways to hit-making music charts. Welcome, Aya Ito.
Hi. Hello.
I've given our audience such a brief bio. Why don't you fill in the gaps and share with our audience what you'd like them to know about you and your career?
Yeah, so I am originally from Tokyo, Japan, and I am Black and Japanese mixed. I am fluent in Japanese and Spanish and English, and so I sing in all three languages as well. I grew up in Indianapolis, but I've been in Chicago for a while now. I went to the University of Chicago and then graduated from there and ended up staying in Chicago and started pursuing music. And then earlier this year, I signed with Smashtown Records. And with them, I've released a couple songs, Don't Take My Life, and If You Let Me, and we are currently also working on an album.
Do you have a projection date for when the album is going to be released?
We're hoping it'll be done before the end of the year, but, with everything going on with COVID, it's kind of still a little bit up in the air. But yeah, hopefully in the next few months or so, we should have it done.
Speaking of COVID, how do you continue to shift or work and produce with all of this going on?
Yeah, so it's been really hard and definitely a learning experience and sort of like a trial and error period for, I know, most musicians. Yeah, like I was mostly a gig performer, a gig worker. And so all of my wedding gigs, all of my indoor gigs and stuff got canceled or postponed. So we had to learn and figure out how to do shows without being live. So maybe via streaming, figuring out how to make money that way. And then luckily, but because I have Smashtown Records, I've been able to continue creating content like music videos and music. And so a lot of it has been going into the studio and recording and creating content that we can put out on the internet as opposed to going out and performing and promoting myself that way.
Talk about going to college and making the decision to become a musician. When you were in college, were you still doing your music, or how did you come to that point where you said, this is what I'm going to do?
Yeah, so I always wanted to be a musician since I was a kid, but I got a full ride scholarship to the University of Chicago. And so I was like, I can't really pass up a free education, So I was like, I'll go to college and I'll get a degree. And then after that, I'm really going to try and pursue music and do it full on. And so, yeah, during college, I was also in a couple a cappella groups. And I got to sing the Star Spangled Banner for Obama when he came to the university for the Democratic rally for midterm elections. So that was really cool. I got to hug him and I was like, oh my gosh, Obama. And yeah, so I was in a cappella groups. I also I started my own band in college too. And so yeah, once I graduated, I joined another band and started doing music part-time. And from there, I developed my performing skills and my singing skills and was able to eventually go on to do music full-time.
What was your major in college?
Yes, I double majored in Romance, Languages, and Literature and East Asian Languages and Civilizations. I know they're like really long major names, but essentially it's Spanish language and literature was my focus. And then in East Asian languages, I was Japanese and then East Asian film.
Talk about your thought pattern. What made you major in that in college?
So at first, I definitely wanted to do Spanish because I had been learning Spanish growing up and I wanted to keep up with it and I wanted to make sure I had another language besides Japanese and English. So that was, I already decided. And then at first I was going to do political science because if music didn't work out, I was going to try and go to law school possibly. But then my first year, I ended up taking an elective class, which was part of the East Asian major, and it was called Chinese Martial Arts Tradition in Literature and Film. And I loved that class, and I loved the professor. And so I was like, wait, if all of the classes for that major are going to be kind of like this one, like that seems really cool. So I ended up switching from political science to East Asian languages and civilizations. And honestly, I ended up liking that major more than the Romance languages major.
You have a very interesting story about singing on the Chicago subway. Can you share with our audience that amazing story?
Yeah, so that whole thing came about very like sporadically and randomly. I was part of this. Oh, Chicago has a bunch of creative groups, and one of them is the Chicago Models Photographers page. And I connected with someone via that page. We never met, and he had posted something that was like, "Hey, I have this idea. I want to do a pop-up, Christmas pop-up. If anybody's interested in singing for that, um, please reach out to me." So I reached out to him. I was like, that sounds like a cool idea. So we met up in person, and he kind of told me more about it. And he was like, yeah, I want to like help spread joy throughout Chicago, like just randomly. And so I was like, okay, yeah, let's do it. So every Christmas, my godmom gets us these Christmas jammies. And so I had a Christmas onesie that was kind of like a Santa Claus one with like a little skirt and everything. And so I put that on. And then we all got on the blue line, and I started singing All I Want for Christmas Is You with some other musicians. There was a guitar player, sax player, and trombone player there. And yeah, so I sang that, and someone took a video and then posted it, and then it just like went viral. Like I didn't even know that it was on the news, and her friend sent her a picture and was like, "Hey, isn't that your girl?" And she was like, she sent that to me, and I was like, "Wait." And it was a picture of me on Fox News, and I was like, "That's totally me!" Like, what? I didn't know it was not going to be on the news. And then it was on Facebook, and it got shared a bunch of times. It got like over 300,000 views and stuff. The mayor even shared it on her Instagram page. And so, yeah, that whole thing, and that's how Smashdown Records found me, was they saw me on the news, and they were like, "She's got a great voice. We should reach out to her."
Wow, that is an amazing story. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Your latest single, Don't Take My Life, is moving up on the radio charts. Tell us about the song and the story behind the song.
Yeah, so we are all aware about what all has happened this year with the death of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd, and these senseless killings by police officers, and also with like the pandemic happening and just a lot of stuff going on, people being unemployed and stuff. We were really moved to write a song that reflected the times now, and that was sort of a call to action, but also a hopeful and motivating song. So me and Tanya Johnson, she's my manager's wife, we ended up writing and recording the song in 2 days, just because we were just so driven by what was going on. And at first I was like skeptical, like, are we going to be able to pull this off? And then once I heard the song, I was like, wow, this song has turned out incredibly. And it actually the video premiered on ABC for their Bud Billiken special. And the Bud Billiken Parade is the largest African American parade in the country. And this was the first time in 91 years that they weren't going to be able to do it in person. So ABC did an hour-long special, and they premiered my music video on the special, which was also just a huge blessing and honor. I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, it was just unbelievable to me.
What can we do right now to support your business and your music and your amazing ability to perform?
Definitely sharing my videos and my music on social media. That's one thing. Social media has been a great help for entertainers during this time. So whatever you can do like if you have the means, if you have social media, if you can share that, that would be great. Go follow all of my pages under Aya Ito, and yeah, and like share that, maybe even send stuff out to people if you can. And then, yeah, just mostly just sharing and following. Because right now that's like all we can do. Everything's virtual, you know.
Talk about your top two influencers in your life and what lessons did they teach you?
Yeah, so one of my biggest influences is definitely my godmother. She's like the nicest person that I know and very extremely giving. And she's taught me a lot. She is there for me when my actual parents weren't. Like, for example, she took me when I was trying to decide which college I wanted to go to. And I had never visited the University of Chicago. And she was like, I don't want you to make this decision without at least visiting the school because it's an incredible school. And so she took me out of school and we did a day trip up here. And that trip was what made me decide to go to the University of Chicago because it was a beautiful day and we had a private tour by accident. And I was just laying on campus and I was like, man, I could really see myself here and things like that. She volunteers all the time, which is why I also love volunteering and why I've been influenced to volunteer and give back. And and she will just like talk to strangers and become friends with anybody, you know, and a lot of what I have learned and what the type of person I want to be, I get from her. And then, but in terms of music, my influences are definitely, I love Beyonce and Rihanna, like women of color, like powerful women of color who are inclusive and who are not afraid to be themselves and who also work extremely hard. I watched Beyonce's Homecoming documentary, and that was incredible to just see how much work she put in after giving birth to twins and putting on this amazing show, and then making sure she had band members from HBCUs and all of that. And then with Brianna and her line and making sure to be inclusive of everybody, like in her Savage Fenty show, having disabled people in her show, having trans people in her show, stuff like that. Like that's incredibly influencing for me and the type of person that I want to be, because I want to make sure to be inclusive of everybody, you know. I don't want to just be like, oh, I only want to influence these people, or I'm only going to have these kind of people in my. I want to make sure everybody feels included in the songs that I'm singing and stuff like that.
There are so many brands and businesses that are dominating. Talk about a brand or a business that's dominating that you admire and why.
A brand or a business that's dominating. I mean, yeah, so right now, I definitely admire all of the small businesses that are doing well right now. And I really admire the work ethic. I know a lot of small businesses are really struggling, but I've seen a lot of small businesses in Chicago being extremely creative and also really helping their employees and making sure to put their employees' safety first and instead of their own best interest and like money first, you know, they're making sure to put other people's safety first, which I think is incredibly selfless of them to do and something that a lot of us can learn from, you know, to be selfless and put others before you because it's not always about just yourself.
Talk about your decision to move from Japan to America and being a Japanese American. How does that play into your music?
So I was only 2 when I moved to the US. Apparently, so according to my mom, she said that we were actually never supposed to move to the US. We were supposed to stay in Japan, but my dad was he was actually in the music business and he was working for this promotion company. And the guy who owned the company, his main gig was his real estate business, but his real estate business went bankrupt, which in turn made his music business go bankrupt. And then so my dad didn't have a job, and the only job that he could get was apparently being up in Sapporo, which is the northernmost island. And he would be there for like 6 to 9 months out of the year. And after having 2 kids, small kids, he was like, no, I'm not doing that. So we moved back to his hometown of Indianapolis and he started working for his dad. And so that's how we ended up moving to the US. And yeah, I mean, being Japanese American and Japanese and Black has definitely had a huge impact on me as a person because obviously you do struggle with identity being biracial. And, growing up with mostly my mom at first, I felt like I identified more Japanese. And I mean, I always spoke Japanese at home. I was around mostly Japanese people. All my mom's friends were Japanese. And we were also living in a white suburb. So I didn't really have a lot of Black friends. And then once my mom moved back to Japan, we moved in with my dad and we moved to another school district, which was like even white and Black kids. And so that's when I started exploring my Black side more and I got more in touch with my Black side. And so now I've definitely come to a place where I feel equally both. I feel equally Black, I feel equally Japanese. And it's definitely influenced, obviously, with my music. I listen to both Japanese music and like American music and Black music. And with all that, and then also singing in Japanese, like my upcoming album is going to have songs that are also in Japanese.
That's an interesting point. And when you talk about being biracial and dealing with identity, and I don't know if I want to say the struggle, so I don't want to let you put the wording there. Talk to someone in our audience, whether they are raising biracial children or they are biracial themselves, and just that whole identity piece.
Yeah, so it's different for every biracial person, and a lot of it has to do with how you were raised, I think. And, I might feel equally both, but some people might feel more in touch with their Black side. I know some biracial people who are like, I'm just Black because they were raised by their Black mother and then their Black stepfather. So there's no right or wrong answer. And I also know that some people do want to explore, like once they get to a certain point, they want to explore more of their other culture that they might not have been in touch with, which is definitely something that you should do. You should definitely, it's part of your identity. No matter what, racially, you are both. So you should definitely explore that, and maybe you'll find something that will make you learn a little bit more about yourself that you didn't think that you knew.
When we look at rappers or Motown or singers and we see the glamour, talk about that aha moment when you felt like that you were going to be successful, or have you hit that aha moment that you're like, I've arrived?
Yeah, so definitely signing with Smashdown Records was one of them. I mean, the video going viral was like the first part of it, I guess. And then I was like, wow, this is really cool. I guess there were a few stages. Like when I started doing music full time, I was like, cool, I've like at least accomplished that where I can make a living off of doing what I've wanted to do. And then that video went viral and then I signed with Smashdown Records. And now, because before I was with cover bands and stuff, and now I'm like at the point where I'm producing my own music and people are listening to my original music and putting out albums and putting out music videos, and people are actually like reaching out to me and listening to my songs. Like this is a kind of a random story, but when I was looking for golf clubs on Facebook Marketplace and I found somebody and it said $20, but I guess it was $20 each. I thought it was for the whole set. And I messaged him and he was like, oh, well, I can sell you the whole set for $150. I was like, okay. And then later he messaged me again. He was like, wait, what's your name? And I was like, Aya. And he was like, are you a musician? I was like, yeah, I go by Aya Ito. And he was like, I just saw your music video the other day. I was looking at this other video and yours just came up right afterwards. And he was like, I loved it so much. Like it was such a powerful message, such a strong message. You have a beautiful voice. He was like, you know what? Just take the golf clubs. You can just have them. And I was like, what? Are you serious? And he was like, yeah. He was like, don't worry about it. They've just been sitting in my garage anyway. And just like stuff like that where people have like seeing the comments on the video of people being like, this is such an amazing song. This is such a strong message. And you have an amazing voice and stuff like that is just like very humbling and makes me feel really great that it's having a positive influence on people and people are liking it.
Advice you wish you had followed?
Advice I wish I had followed. Man, Well, I wish I had followed my instincts a little bit more sometimes. There have been times where I felt like I should do something and I was either swayed or wasn't super confident in myself and I didn't go along with that and then it ended up, not being a good thing. I ended up being like I should have done what I thought I should have done. And I feel like when you kind of know when you should follow your instincts and the hesitation may like bring you back, but following through is very important because honestly, I feel like it can't really hurt to follow your instincts because that's something that you really, really felt at the moment that you should do. And for me, more often than not, when I didn't follow my instincts, I regretted not doing that.
Talk to a younger Aya. What advice would you give?
Young Aya, make sure, what would I tell myself? I would probably say honestly, like the same kind of thing that we were just talking about, just to like be confident in yourself and don't doubt yourself and just like strive for the moon. Just go for it. Don't think that you can't do anything. Don't think that because of your background or because of who you are that you won't be able to accomplish what you want to accomplish and just go for it.
You do a lot of volunteer work. Talk about the volunteer work that you're doing and if there's a social cause that's tied to your business.
Yeah, so recently I have been volunteering a lot with Brave Space Alliance, which is the first trans-led and Black-led organization, community organization on the South Side. And so I volunteer with them, dropping off and picking up food. I have a car, so they need a lot of people with cars who can drop off food, pick up food, and then like this week I'm taking coats and scarves and stuff to keep people warm, donating that kind of stuff to them as well. And then there's also another one in my neighborhood called Healthy Hood, which same kind of thing, packaging food and then delivering it to families in need. I also have volunteered with Polished Pebbles, which is young girls mentoring program. And also I have volunteered, or I'm going to start volunteering with Save Our Daughters, which is Kiki Palmer's organization. I don't know if you've heard of it, but yeah, that was something that I just found out about yesterday that they want me to get involved with as being a mentor, which I'm really excited about. And then actually last week, I just got matched with my mentee for this program called Link Unlimited Scholars, which is specifically for Black students. And they start as freshmen and they get their mentor and you mentor them throughout high school until college and help them get into the colleges they want to get into with no debt. Since I've been through that, so I was like, I definitely want to do this and help someone do this as well, because I know a lot of people don't know this, but if you do very well in school, even if you're poor, you will be able to get in. Most of the top schools will give you grants and no loans. That's exactly how I got my full ride scholarship, was because it was my academics, but also not being really poor. And so they accept people on a need blind basis. And then they look at how much money your parents make, and whatever your parents can't afford to pay, they will just cover everything without loans, which is amazing. And so, yeah, I got paired with my mentee last week, and she actually wants to be a singer too. And she also wants to be an accountant. So I'm really excited to get to know her better and hopefully help her on her path to college.
I think that's excellent with her doing the accounting, and that
Yeah.
whole business is going to help her very
hmm
well. What problem exists in the world today that you'd like to solve?
Oh man. I know I won't be able to solve anything on my own, but if I could solve something, it would definitely be like child poverty and homelessness and like starvation and stuff. Like seeing children homeless and seeing children hungry around the world is just so heartbreaking to me. And I love kids and I love volunteering with children. So that's something that if I could solve, I like I would love to.
What keeps you up at night, if anything?
I mean, that child poverty and then like social injustices that happens, like the police brutality and stuff, and the inequality that you see in the world and in the US specifically, it definitely keeps me up. And then like every time, you see something on the news and see another black man or black woman killed by the police, it's just I can't sleep after seeing something like that.
What's next on the horizon for you?
Yeah, so we obviously the album that I talked about earlier, and then we're also trying to get me out in Japan. So obviously when the pandemic is over and we can get over there. But we've been working with an amazing producer who has worked with a lot of big Japanese artists and American artists. And so he is going to go out to Japan or like use his connections in Japan to try and get me big out there. So I'm really hoping we're also working on a music video for that as well for one of my Japanese songs. So I'm really hoping that I can get my name out in Japan and kind of target that market as well as the US market and, do both.
That's a brilliant strategy. Do you do anything on TikTok?
Well, I just started to. I literally just started posting like last week. So yeah, I do have a TikTok now, and it's Aya AYA period ITO if you want to follow me and see some stuff. Mostly it's just me singing Disney songs and Disney videos. Yeah, I'm gonna start. I need to learn how to use the tools and be a little more creative.
When it's all said and done, talk about your legacy. How do you want to be remembered?
Well, I definitely want to be remembered for my music and the positive impact that I've made. Hopefully, I've made a big one by the time I die. Yeah, I want to just be remembered as a good person and someone who was looking out for everybody's best interest and looking out for equality overall and like for everybody.
Someone's listening to this audio and they are wanting to go into music. And how do you vet a music company? How do you decide I should go with this record company versus another?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely do a lot of research. Research the company, research the people that work for the company, and, meet the people. Like when I first met Darnell, who's my manager slash he owns the label, I met him and his wife the first time, and they were just such incredible people. They're such good people. And that alone said so much to me about how they would be to work with. And so, yeah, meet them in person. And then we also kind of had like a trial period before we even signed any papers, which was great for both of us, so that we could make sure before we sign any contracts to know that we will actually work well together and that we'll be a good team. And so, yeah, just research, research, research. Like you can't do enough research. And once you're comfortable too, then that's when you should probably start moving forward.
What is something that we should know about your industry that we don't know?
Well, I'm not sure what everybody is familiar with, but like as a woman, this is something I've mentioned in the past, is just to be very careful and wary and keep your eyes open and keep yourself on your toes whenever you're dealing with other producers or musicians, because although like I do believe that most people are good, there are still bad people, and there are still people that want to take advantage of women specifically and will tell you that they have all of these connections and will tell you that they will do this, this, and this for you and stuff. And in the end, it's actually just them wanting to like spend time with you or them wanting to, get with you or whatever. So that's something that you should definitely, women out there, girls out there who are trying to break into the industry, like do not hesitate to bring someone with you if you're going to meet someone for the first time or work with them for the first time. Do not hesitate to research them. I mean, you definitely should research them actually, and then don't hesitate to reach out with other people who've worked with them to make sure that they're good people to work with, because honestly, you never know, and your safety is the most important. And yeah, and you being comfortable is also extremely important. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's like other things in the industry. I mean, the industry we all know is can be very difficult and super brutal, especially now getting into the industry, like is going to be really hard, especially if you're a performer like I am. So I guess I would say right now, something you should focus on is definitely songwriting and creating content and maybe pitching that first because places aren't really doing performances right now.
If someone wrote an autobiography about you, what would the title be?
I think it might be called Harmony of Colors. That's what my name means in Japanese. Aya means harmony of colors. And I feel like, well, harmony is obviously a musical term. And then I feel like me as a person, I am like kind of a harmony of colors, being Black and Asian, but then also being in touch with Latin American culture as well. And I feel like I am also a harmony of colors. So I think that would be a good title.
That is beautiful.
Thank you.
Talk about someone in your legacy, in your lineage, that has given you the most valuable lesson, and what was it?
It would probably be my oldest brother. So actually, this is an interesting story too. He found me on Facebook maybe like 5 years ago. He reached out to me and he was like, "Hey, I think if Paul Smith is your father, I might be your brother." And I was like, "What? Is this a scam? Like, what's going on?" Like, and I asked my dad, and he was like, "Oh, well, the timing lines up, but we never did a DNA test, so I don't know for sure." And I was just like, "Okay, yeah, he's definitely my brother." And he actually is also a musician, and he's very accomplished. He's toured with Wynton Marsalis. He's toured with Norah Jones. He's played with like Roy Hargrove and stuff. And he's a great musician. And one of the things he told me, I remember, is never ever stop developing your craft and your talent. He was like, don't. He said when he started drumming, he would be drumming for 6 hours out of the day, just like constantly practicing, constantly developing. And he's like, you can never stop developing, you can never stop improving. Don't ever quit improving yourself. And because creativity is something that's infinite, it's not something that has a top tier or like a glass ceiling. So make sure you just keep up with it because there's always going to be somebody else who's doing more than you are. So just keep up with developing your talent.
Talk about raising capital and the funds to continue to do what you do.
Yeah, so I mean, luckily I have the label backing me, so that's been a great help because I honestly don't think I would be able to do what I've accomplished this far as a solo artist without them. And so with my band, I have another band called Chicago Loud 9. With them, we pretty much would do shows and we had like a PayPal account. And whenever we did shows, we would maybe pay out each member a little bit, but then like put money into that account. And if we weren't at a certain amount, we would always put more money in. And if we were at a certain amount, then we would pay people out, that kind of thing, so that whenever we wanted to record albums or things of that nature, we would have money to do. So definitely, like if you're an independent artist, I would highly recommend, especially if you're a band, having a separate fund for things like recording and music videos and stuff like that, because that stuff is not cheap, as we all know.
Talk about your worst moment in business or as a singer, and what was your takeaway?
My worst moment. Oh, yeah. So one that I can remember pretty vividly is we were playing a show in St. Joseph, Michigan. This was with my band Chicago Loud 9. And we got there, and so it's the lead vocalist or me, and then there's a rapper. And the rapper like hadn't showed up. And we were about to go on, and I was just like, what are we going to do? Because at that time, I think I had only been in the band maybe like a year or maybe 2 years. So a lot of the songs were, half him, half me, or like a lot of him and a little bit of me. And so I was like, and also he's Black. So I was like, and we're driving to St. Joseph, Michigan, I'm like, man, like I started thinking the worst, like, oh my gosh, what if he got pulled over by the cops? What if something really bad happened? Like I was like freaking out, and like I had so much anxiety, and we had to go on at that point, and I didn't even know what to do. And like, I totally messed up that performance. Like I forgot the words to some songs, and I just like was not putting on a good show. I'm sure everybody could tell that I was nervous and anxious, and like, just like, I just didn't know what to do. And that was like probably one of the worst moments on stage I've ever had, and pretty embarrassing too, because that's like never happened to me where I was just like blank. Usually if I forget words to a song, I can, make something up or play it off like I didn't. But at that show, I was just like in my head too much, and like worried about my bandmate, like thinking the worst. And obviously he shows up like 30 minutes after we finished performing, and his phone wasn't charged, and he got lost, and and he eventually got a charger, I guess, but he had no idea where he was going. So I was just like, oh man, you had us so scared.
Talk about your why. Why do you do what you do?
There's definitely a lot of reasons. I mean, one is definitely that singing and performing and music is what is like my happy place. Ever since I was a kid, I just feel myself when I'm singing or when I'm performing. And another reason is because I do want to, I feel like I have a good voice, and I want to share that with people. And another reason is probably, I know I mentioned earlier, creating a positive impact on people, and hopefully being a role model for other young girls like I was, and being a positive influence for them, and hopefully showing them that if they put their mind to it, they can really accomplish anything that they want to.
Talk about self-care. What does self-care look like to you?
Self-care is definitely both mental and physical. So for me, I do work out, and I try and eat healthy, but at the same time, I also am making sure to take care of myself mentally. If I ever feel overwhelmed, I will take a break from whatever is making me feel overwhelmed. If I need to talk to someone, I will talk to someone. Like, I know there's been like a huge stigma with like mental health and stuff, and it's becoming less and less so now. But like, I'm a firm believer in everybody should definitely see a therapist, because even if you are 100%, if you feel like you're 100% okay, it's always nice to have someone, an objective party to talk to, because we all go through something at some point in our lives, and it can't hurt to speak to somebody. And honestly, with therapy, like, it's helped me figure out how to handle certain situations, or how to react to certain situations, and kind of walk myself through things that might have been traumatizing to myself whenever I was a kid, or even as an adult. And working through those traumas and those kinds of things is extremely important for yourself, because your mental and your physical health are tied together. So you need to make sure you take care of both.
Aya, if you conducted this interview, what is the one question you would have asked yourself? I want you to ask the question and answer it.
Oh man. What would I have asked myself? I guess I would have asked myself, I don't know, that's a hard one. Maybe how to promote yourself as a musician. I would definitely say to post as much of your craft as you can, whether you're a photographer or videographer or singer, whatever. There is no such thing as too much content. Like, keep producing content, never stop, keep putting it out there. The more you put out there, the more people will see you. And then also just don't hesitate to, send stuff to people, and, individually. Like, people really appreciate, I've noticed that whenever I invite them to an event individually, they're way more likely to come, even if it's a virtual event. If I text them individually and I'm like, hey, I have a virtual show on this day, you should come. they're 10 times more likely to come than if I were to just invite them on Facebook to the actual event. So take that time to do that. The more you promote yourself, the higher your success rate is going to be, especially in the creative field.
How do you deal with rejection?
Yeah, rejection is always hard, obviously, for anybody. I kind of, I feel bad at first, but then I take a step back and try to talk myself into, rejection is part of the industry, and the greatest people have been rejected, many times. So don't let that stop you. And yeah, I pretty much just have to kind of bring myself back and tell myself this is just one, and there's going to be more, but eventually it's going to stop and you're going to start getting yeses.
And I like to say no just means next option.
Yes, exactly.
We've come to the part of our interview. It's called Fun Facts Lightning Round. I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and I'd like you to give me very quick answers. If there's something you desire not to answer, feel free to say pass. Are you ready for the Fun Facts Lightning Round?
Yes.
The last movie you saw?
The last movie I saw, Midsommar.
You relax doing what?
Watching TV.
Your favorite singer or rapper?
Favorite singer, Stevie Wonder.
Your favorite dance song?
My favorite dance song would probably be Flawless by the remix with Beyonce and Nicki Minaj.
What food you eat every week, no matter what?
Oh, meat. Some kind of meat.
Your favorite month?
July, because that's when my birthday is.
Your first job?
A babysitter.
Work out or hit the couch?
Depends on my mood. Probably hit the couch.
Aya, thank you so much for spending time with us on Black Entrepreneur Experience Podcast. Before we let you go, why don't you share with our audience again the best way for them to connect with you, to do business with you, and to support your music?
Yes, so you can follow me on Instagram at Blasian Sensation, which is BLAZIAN Sensation. And also on Spotify and all streaming platforms, you can find me under Aya Ito, which is AYAITO.
Thank you. That's a wrap.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening and subscribing to Black Entrepreneur Experience. We would love for you to leave a review and rating on iTunes and share with your friends. For show notes and more episodes, go to www.beepodcast.com. Join us next Wednesday, and remember, green is the new black. So keep your bank accounts and your business in the black.